Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Paradox, and this is the Code Breakers. Before we get going, let me play a little bit of music first. Let's see here.
America, America, fuck yeah! Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah, America, fuck yeah! Freedom is the only way, yeah. Terrorists, your game is through, 'cause now you have to answer to America, fuck yeah! So lick my blood and some on my mouth, America, fuck yeah! What you gonna do when we come for you now? It's the dream that we all share. It's the hope for tomorrow. Fuck yeah! We got us! Fuck yeah! Walmart! Fuck yeah! Gas! Fuck yeah! Baseball! Fuck yeah! NFL! Fuck yeah! Rock and roll! Fuck yeah! The internet! Fuck yeah! Slavery! Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah! Starbucks, fuck yeah. Disney World, fuck yeah. Porno, fuck yeah. Valium, fuck yeah. Reebok, fuck yeah. Fake tits, fuck yeah. Sushi, fuck yeah. Taco Bell, fuck yeah. Rodeo, fuck yeah. Bed Bath and Beyond, fuck yeah. Liberty, fuck yeah. White Slips, fuck yeah. The Alamo, fuck yeah. Band-Aids, fuck yeah. Las Vegas, fuck yeah. Christmas, fuck yeah. Immigrants, fuck yeah. Popeye, fuck yeah. Democrats, fuck yeah. Republicans, sportsmanship, books.
All right, all right. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. Let's get it going. Today is the day. Where we at today? November the 7th, 2 days after the election. And I just want to do a quick little video, not too long, won't be on too long. Just having a little bit of fun, lighten it up. Day two, 48 hours later, we are here live in the flesh. Trump is the president elect. And listening to the liberals whine and complain is very interesting, to say the least. Trump's coming into office. He's got to set up his staff. I think they've already started working on the transitional staff. Kamala gave her concession speech, I think yesterday, 4 o'clock at Howard. Um, Trump gave a pretty gracious speech. Um, he gave a pretty gracious speech, at least the first one. We'll see how the rest of that goes and how long that's going to start to turn up a little bit of heat. RFK talked, they kind of pressed, I may play a little bit of that. They kind of pressed RFK on what is he going to, from the left, what he's going to do about vaccines and things of that nature. So I may try to find that video and play it. And then all the other talking heads from the left is doing their little somber speeches from late night TV to morning TV, and now we're getting ready to kind of transform everything to trying to get a full understanding of exactly how to kind of reshape going forward on the left and on the right. The right, of course, is teasing the left and laughing at their videos, and the left is trying to console their people. And right now, I mean, the numbers are still coming in, of course, but as the numbers come in, they'll start to try to form an idea of why this happened, as they do every 4 years. and or every 2 years, if a house gets lost or if the Senate gets lost, they'll start to go through that process of trying to create narratives to discuss uh, exactly why this happened. Uh, Trump, not Trump, but a lot of the hosts are trying to. They're all over the place, to be totally honest with you. I'll put it that way. They're kind of all over the place right now. It's going from the whole world is uh, kicking out incumbents. They're going from that level of explanation. They're going to the economy. They're going to her having only 100 days, to not being qualified to run, and her being set up all the way to where they're trying to find a group to blame. And now me and DC knew that was going to happen at some point. You know, what group do you blame? What group do you blame? And I want to say they've tried to do black people, and they went to the Hispanics and the white women, and it's been very interesting to see white folks kind of go at each other at this point. They're not really using that language all the time, but just saying, you want these particular rights and you're fighting for these rights, but it's kind of like, are you even talking to these people to really find out what they want? You're just trying to tell them what they want, what they need. That's kind of how you handle things, I think, at the end of the day. And you know, it's very interesting to say the least. Um, Kind of watching them reconstruct our reality going forward, and how left and right is sort of pushing and pulling on each other right now. And Trump being president, like he wasn't president already, so it kind of doesn't really work this time around because we've already had him president for 4 years, and he's a sore loser. But he left the White House, so it is what it is. He's just not following tradition which can be problematic. Obviously, you always want to you want to transfer power safely, but doesn't always happen. Just check the world basically. So he's going to be that anomaly that had J6 and never conceded and felt like he was cheated. And hey, maybe he was. Who knows? I mean, they did try to kill the man, obviously. So and they're pretending that's just not even happening at this point. So it's kind of funny. But a lot of this stuff is, I mean, we can look at different things. I think one of the major drivers, at least in social media world, I think going back to probably 2015, 2016, is a lot of the cancel culture stuff. I think is starting to catch up with white culture, white society, cancel culture, DEI, BLM, defund the police, um, changing pronouns. I think all those things culturally between the two white groups on the left and the right, and using that pressure to either cancel those people, fire those people, or what? Oh yeah, and I forgot the woman one. What is it called? What is it called? Not feminism. Oh man, it's slipping my mind right now. But the whole woman thing, where they was just getting rid of all the men, for messing with women, raping women, drugging women, raping women, the whole thing. Me Too, boom. The Me Too movement, I think it's all of it. And that's just how things go. I think, things kind of go back and forth. When you introduce new things like that, it gets processed and assimilated, and then some of the culture rejects it. Then that culture becomes the counterculture, which is Trump. And that's how weird it is, in my opinion. It almost basically becomes counterculture, meaning that you can't say anything anymore. And that group got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you want to frame Trump as a populist, if you want to frame him as a nationalist or whatever, globalists don't like that. And a lot of people on the left, are open borders and the whole thing. So, and save everybody and protect everybody and all that. And I think that at some point it gets pushed back, and again we are here The other thing is what they call it the red wave. I'm calling it the red tsunami. There is a chart out there now that shows that 48 out of the 50 states all moved to the right. And I know that Democrats probably have known this for a very long time, and they just still want to jam through the leadership. I think on the donors or whoever these people are want to jam through what they want to jam through, and they want to tell Americans what they need instead of listening to people. But you pick what you pick. You make your decisions, and you have to live with those decisions. And after this election is up, after Will's, I'm going to say probably another week or two. I doubt it. Let me not say that because let me tell y'all what the left wing media did with Trump in office in 16. It was relentless for the entire time. So I almost said that we will move on and have a good time and let it go and live our lives. But the left wing is they're not gonna let it happen. They have literally already started with the fear mongering. I mean, it ain't been 24 hours, and it's everything from Hitler to not mass deportation. What are they calling it? Immigrant camps or something, separating kids from parents. They're going hard. What else are they doing? I think there's one guy I was telling DC. There's one guy was saying, I'm telling somebody this. He was saying how he's gonna start hiding immigrants in his attic and stuff like that. And I just don't know. You know, I don't have an issue with people coming to our country, however they get here, and just try to figure it out the best they can. Rounding people up and all this stuff. I want to see what that looks like. I'm not going to be self righteous and talk about how, well, they broke the law when they got here and they got to go back. I mean, Trump said they got to go back and come in legally. You can take that for what it is. I did hear from some people online that some of the folks that bring illegal into the country, they've already sent some messages out saying, y'all got to hurry up and get up here, before January 20th, before January 10th. You want to start seeking asylum right now. They try to get as many folks in here as you can in the next 5 months. That's interesting. Um, but I don't know, man. Illegal immigration and immigration, I think, is just a very, a very tricky thing. And I don't know how harsh you should be in a country full of immigrants, former slaves, ancestries, and native people in a very mixed country. Um, I won't get too much into the racial aspects of immigration because there's some arguments I think can be made about some of the impact going forward for our children and grandchildren and great grandchildren, and how this society and the way it's designed will have some impact on us that we're not probably really looking at or don't care about or may not have the power to deal with it, and so we're just keeping our head in the sands. But I will say this, and I'm fine with African immigrants coming in here, Caribbean immigrants coming in here of African descent who recognize their African descent, obviously Brazilians and all other darker people who connect more with their African side. You know, I don't care how you get here, just get here. We should have a whole. And that's a whole other conversation. I don't want to go down that road. But anyway, other people that come here though, that's not of African descent. That's the thing that you're gonna have to deal with from a black perspective. And if you're not a black person and you're listening, then obviously it doesn't apply to you, of course. But just like when Europeans come here, right? In that world, it is what it is, and we act like it's all good. So it's all interesting as we have lots of illegal Canadians that are white people that are in this country, and all quiet is kept. The same as Eastern Europeans and others as well. So it's very interesting on who's being identified quietly and who's not. But the Latino culture as a whole is a very complex culture, but a lot of Latinos identify as white, even though whites may not necessarily look at them as white, depending. on phenotype and skin color, but there that might be more of a problem, and you might actually starting to see it right now for them, which I've been telling people that for a while, is that you really want to pay attention to people who want to be a part of white society, and looking at the vote and how they vote and how they identify. And I can play you some videos. I might play a couple of videos on that, but there's little clips out there that's talking about Latinos identifying as white or wanting to be white, so they're just trying to be a part of that and not do no race stuff, no culture stuff. They just want to integrate into a white society or what you would call mainstream society. And so they have their own things they got to, you got to be aware of that, obviously, just because, psychologically, know what you're really dealing with on a daily basis, because they can hide, kind of go back and forth because of race, right? Because we see things, we're trained to see things through race in some cultures. You may be around a guy who looks, he has darker skin, but his philosophy, the way he sees the world, what he really thinks, he can hide that from you, not knowing that he really is trying to be something else that he's really not. So the Latino culture over the next 50 years is going to be very interesting on how that gets dealt with through a racialized society. Now, if the society ever decides to end race, then that'll be that at that point. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. People on the right though are really, people on the right are really excited that they can really go at DEI, BLM, cancel culture. They're very happy that they made inroads in that, and they're putting a lot of pressure on white lefties. Uh, a lot of pressure on white lefties to figure out, are they going to jump ship and move to the right, or are they going to double down and try to protect minorities from LGBTQ to black folks? And that's what they're trying to figure out now, because they have to decide. And not only just that, but also bigger government, more social programs, more regulations, the whole gambit of things, right? They have to make a decision. Can they do both at the same time, or are they going to have to give up something? And so if you watch anything today or the next couple of days, probably the next couple of weeks, like I said, you're going to kind of see what they're going to decide. And I think a lot of it's going to be how people emotionally reacts to Trump over the next coming years, and see how they can leverage it. Because the whites on the left and other non-whites who have control are going to, when they're looking at how they're going to manage us, if they can keep driving that fear like they did 4 years ago, they're probably thinking that everything Trump does, we're going to call it racist, which, remember, in my opinion, they're using our racial capital, the white folks are, and other blacks and others as well, but they're using our racial capital without our permission, and they use it and call everybody something. Stop using our stuff. When something happens to us, we can use it in those moments in time. But I don't need no cosigns. I don't need no white people telling me anything. And I don't need you using it and calling other people race. Just let it go. Come up with other terms to call your own people something, instead of using our capital that we have with that word and applying it appropriately. Because obviously, if you look at the last 10 years, just look at how it's been used. I can't make it up. And it's been watered down when you call everybody something all the time, out loud, of course. And we have our own philosophies, obviously, on this channel, and the people that we know, we understand this culture and what it is. But you still have to practice some level of deception, if you want to call it deception. That's a negative word. Maybe find another word you want to use, but you have to be careful in this war of words, and how often one of your strongest words is being used. And they just use it willy-nilly, just all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And so it is what it is, right? I can't really stop it from happening. It's really just an observation. But they will call Trump everything in the book. They will attack everything he does. It's probably going to be the strategy. It's probably going to be a 2016 to 2020 strategy. And they're talking like, oh, I mean, we may not do that. And, because I'm going to tell you why. I'm watching people who are moderate Democrats telling other Democrats, look, and far leftists, look, you need to start listening to the white working class and other non-white working people. and listen to what they want and what they need. And it's not the things that you're offering. You need to change. And the way they're responding to that advice looks like 2016. They're halfway listening, but they have their own agendas, and they want to push what they want to push, which I'm perfectly okay with. You know, you win some, you lose some, no big deal. What's going on? It's going good, but um, it's like I said, it's very interesting. This is a very fun time to sort of watch all of the people who sort of manage reality, uh, how they're trying to explain this stuff away. And I'm gonna tell you, trying to blame people is just fun. I'm actually gonna play some of Pat Bet David's podcast. Sometimes I don't get dinged for it. I'm gonna play a little bit of his because he's it's like a view within a view because he's playing like the view and he's playing other stuff. And like I said, I don't know the best way to approach some of this stuff, but I don't know if I'm 100% comfortable with people just on national television making very strong claims about how people are, you know, and watching people have sort of like a very negative reaction uh, to being called certain things. And so a Latino woman who is I think she's maybe Afro Latina on the View made a comment about uneducated white women. Now, when you don't say it on television, as far as I know, she says it on television, and there is a quick reaction from I think the lady's white. She's conservative. I think she may have been on Trump's team, maybe at some time. I guess she's moved more to the left to be on the View. She had a very visceral, quick reaction to. I don't think you should be calling white women uneducated. So I'm definitely going to probably play that video. But watching them try to blame Latino men for voting for Trump, and because the thing is this, what should be happening is, okay, Latino men voted for Trump. Well, why did they vote for Trump? And let's see, can we appeal to them? But they're actually trying to demonize people. It's nobody's fault that you tried to jam in a lot of policies that were just overwhelming to people, and it didn't make any sense to people. I think America, and again, you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. I think America can tolerate if you take the black community and just set it aside, and we look at the data, look at the numbers, and look at the treatment, and you just isolate them and say, well, look, they are doing the best they can do, and we know what we've done in the past, and we know how these systems are. So leave them alone, help them out, or whatever, but leave it right where it's at. Do not take from that. Do not try to pull from them and then mix us in with Asians, Latinos, gays, trans, uh, uh, Me Too. And then you can just add on the other policies of big government handouts, uh, globalization, just a whole litany of things, right? I think when you're packing that in and you're putting that on us, it's so unusual to me when you really see how they're trying to make that sausage basically, right? They're showing you so that you're getting a little peek of it right now of how we have been used. All our political capital, in my opinion, has been used to satisfy far left psychopaths that have their own agendas. And I don't know, and I know that many of us aren't even, I don't know how many of us are that far left, maybe 10% or something. But we're a very small group of people. And so to be able to be able to use this as an anchor for your party, which doesn't in itself doesn't make sense, but they try to make it like it's something to be proud of. I look at it as an experiment because I'm thinking to myself, why wouldn't it be? You missed them yesterday. You missed. That is funny. That's funny. But he maybe threw off my train of thought with that comment. But He might jump on though. I'm not gonna be here too much longer. What is it? 25 minutes. And we'll try to make this by 8 o'clock to get off. So he might jump on before that. I sent him the link. But anyway, let me get back to where I was at. I didn't really forgot what I was just saying. That quick. That's funny. But so I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's nothing that I can really do about it. Of course, it's just making kind of observing how that's done and making black women the anchor of a party where they're that small of a percentage. I find in itself unusual. Um, I don't want to be allies with these people, and I hate that it's not that. I hate that we're trapped for now, at least. And I'm glad. And shout out to men uh, that were Democrats who jumped ship. Now I don't know in 2028 how many people can going to maintain it, but I'm impressed. I'm impressed, and I told DC that if it breaks 90%, I'm gonna talk about it all the time, and I'm gonna bring it up as much as I can because I need to see the truth, and the truth, and it happened. I want to say 25, 30%, whatever the numbers are, 20%, something like that, 25 maybe. I don't know if it's sustainable. Maybe it will be sustainable next cycle around. We'll see. Hopefully we're less offended by things going forward, and so you can handle being on the right and can tolerate the way they're talking versus how the left does their little stuff that they do. But we'll see in 4 years. I'll be impressed if you can grow that number even more and get it to 50% or lower, maybe 40%. Um, because we need to get the hell away from the Democratic Party until they decide to make the changes they need to make. Then we can once they maybe learn and make some adjustments. Maybe you can start to slide back over there. But um, um, it's going in the right direction. So hopefully 80 to 70 in 4 years. But or 60. But I think Obama was like 96 or something, 97 or whatever, some crazy number. But maybe as time goes forward, those things will change. Because again, when you have folks struggling, you don't have policies that remember how people feel. Not necessarily what's actually happening, but how people feel. Um, I think a lot of that is like, well, what's the point, right? And so you switch over. Now, like I said, the red tsunami or the red wave, the red hurricane, the red volcano, whatever you want to call it, to watch 48 states shift. I need to go back and look at like 2020 and 2016 to see what that looks like. But to have 48 states shift, it's sending a clear message that something's not right, something's going on. And maybe people have gotten less sensitive over lately because sensitivity was a big deal for a while. But that's what I think I even put in the title because I think Trump has kind of broken through and said, well, you can say what you want, do what you want, not be sensitive to everything, not worry about being offended by everything. But that you can do what you do and not have to worry about constantly being attacked. So I think that maybe he has triggered something in people. But human beings are weird, man. We're weird. We're weird. So in this country, I guess it's just all kind of strange because to see those inner city numbers is very interesting. Like I think I did say earlier that I did hear that I'm not totally sure how much real ground game was really there as they made it to be perceived. And I don't know if anybody know how much was this total election, all of the elections for 2024. I want to say $14 billion. I think Ted Cruz's election, it maybe was a Ted Cruz or some election. I think maybe a Senate race in Ohio. I think it was a half a bill. I mean, that's just them numbers is just insane. And hopefully going forward, we'll get more information on the ground game in Georgia, the ground game in Jersey, Illinois, New York, and I'm sure some other states. What is those ground? What is the what were did you have people really out there? Because you spent $1 billion in 3 months. Um, where did it go? Where did the billion go? Did it get to those organizations in those cities to make sure at least you get the turnout? Because she didn't get the turnout. That has to be investigated, I would assume. I do think it takes time for messaging to settle into people's minds, but you're not doing Joe Biden numbers in some of the cities. That is and they're trying to say on the right at least that she's a bad candidate, which I don't. I'm trying to see it. I don't see it. It's not their job to like her or to understand her messaging. That's really not the point necessarily. Um, if she's not charismatic enough to sort of make them, kind of freeze them, I understand that. Like from Obama's perspective, where he was charismatic enough so they couldn't really say anything because it was just too much. So she's not that. Um, Michelle Obama is that, but she's not that. I look at it as a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more stoic, a little bit more focused, kind of like Ron DeSantis, kind of. But what I think that's just more engaging. I think. But again, she only had a few months, so I won't put a lot on her. But they're putting a lot of people are putting the whole thing on her. And I'm just thinking to myself, when you look at that tsunami, that red tsunami, I don't know if it would have mattered who you picked or what they said. Um, the country was sending a message, and I don't even know if it mattered. I don't know how much of it's Trump. Um, to be totally honest with you. Um, but maybe they say messaging is very powerful. And maybe his messaging for 8 years, maybe it somehow finally penetrated. Maybe folks just sort of got used to. Maybe it's not any of the technicals. Maybe people just got used to him just banging that drum. Immigration, you don't have no money. They're taking your money. They're taking your jobs. Immigration and your money over and over and over again. And then you add to what you can and cannot say, all the rules, all the maybe that was enough. Or maybe it's just going to the grocery stores or going to your insurance company and just saying how those prices are. It could be that, it was a lot against them. I just wished, it's always funny because after the fact, everyone has such strong opinions, but these people they were quiet as church mouses, for the last 100 days. Instead of yelling about what the issues were, they was just kind of going along with it. That's why you can't really trust any of these media people, not even the podcasters at this point. It's hard to really trust them because you don't really know who's funding them and what they're really. It takes you have to watch them for a while to really grasp, what's going on. Some folks think it's gender bias. I'm sure that's probably some of it in there. Um, I don't know though. I just don't know. But maybe I'm not in man spaces, so maybe that energy is really there, or not. I don't know. But I'm gonna tell you, white women voted for Kamala at I think 55, and I think Latina women at 70. Um, very interesting. Um, as far as what the Democrats were claiming people want, so clearly they knew that they didn't want what they was trying to force them to give. Because one thing about the Democrats and even the Republicans is, are you giving me what I'm asking for? Or you give me what you think I should have? White women didn't vote for her at 55%. Right. White women voted for Trump at 55%. So what are you trying to say in the comments? Which I don't even like responding to comments, but white women didn't vote for her at 55%. Stop it. Right. Is that what you're trying to say? Didn't vote for her? Did you mean they voted for him at 55%? I don't even know what they voted for. I think they voted for her at like 29%. I'm not mistaken, something like that. And you know what's so funny? I don't even think they said what her number was. I think they just said what his numbers were. Um, it's very interesting. And I think I've seen some polls where it was almost, I think it was maybe in like the 70s or high 60s for him on some polls. I mean, in some of the states and stuff. So I'm waiting on all the numbers to come in so I can look at some of the state numbers by gender and by race, just to sort of see exactly. Because when you got the left telling you that Trump is a monster, and I said people like monsters. Clearly, America likes what it likes. So it's something you have to reckon with. So I think it's just absolutely entertaining, man. It just doesn't. Election and politics, man, it just doesn't get any better. And it's been fun sort of watching the analysts try to sort things out. And yeah, I've been very, very happy. I'm still tired. I'm trying to recover, but I cannot stop trying to keep up with some of this stuff, man, because just watching them trying to console everybody like we need to be consoled or something, man. So y'all gotta get some tough skin. And I probably said it by mistake. I meant to say Trump at 55%. But you're gonna have to watch your tone in the comments though, or you can disappear. I have very low tolerance for foolishness. You know what? I've already wasted too much time. But anyway, what was I saying? So we will see going forward how this shakes out. Let's think. So January is coming up. So what is it? November the 7th. Let me see. November the 7th. Um, December the 7th, January the 7th. So what? Is it 90 days? 30, 60, 70 days, roughly, maybe something like that. 70, 80 days, maybe. So they're gonna have to start getting the messaging together to start to attack Trump. It's gonna come pretty fast, and they're gonna turn the heat up if he survives. If they don't try to take him out at this point, he's gonna turn the heat up. But I think I want to play some. What is it? 38 minutes. I think I'm gonna play a couple of videos real quick, just to see. I want to look at something. Let me play a little bit of PBD first. Let's see. Yeah, the right, well, not even really the right, it's really the MAGA right that is just the level of giddiness is pretty funny. But I will say this, you own it now. And it's always fun. It's always fun chasing. But what's crazy is that if you get, I think they're going to get the House. I'm confident. The House is done. I think so. You get the House, you get the Senate, you get the presidency. You have everything. You get your transition team in. You get everybody swapped out. You get all your folks rolling. 6 months. Eight. 6, 9, 10 months, and it's like it's yours. So what's funny is that everything that happened, America is a crazy place. The world is always doing whatever it's doing, right? And so if anything happens, you're getting the blame for it. And in this country, it's always something happening. So it's gonna be pretty funny watching the Republicans have to of course, push back And it's kind of like, well, it's yours, man. Look, the economy, that means the economy has to stay strong, or you can lose, obviously you can lose in 26 or 28. You got to make sure no more wars happening. You make sure there's no crazy, no viruses, no hurricanes. Like, everything is on you. So it's going to be a very fun 4 years. I expect, positives and negatives, right? So the economy does great for some time, then the economy will have a pullback. You got to deal with that, right? Prices can go up more. Inflation can go up. It could be global fears. I think right now they were saying that because of the tariffs, even though a tariff will make our dollar stronger, obviously things can cost more, and it can have some issues with our bonds and stuff and our yields. And so there's some stuff out there now where the stock market itself is responding great. It's responding great to Trump. It's excited, but the market's the market. I know I've made a bunch of money in the last, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 days. I've been excited, but things will settle down, because at the end of the day, it's business. So we'll see. But you know what? Let me play some PBD real quick and see. Can I play a little bit of his video? Let's see. And you know what? I'm gonna play some stuff on Twitter too. I put in blaming Trump for racism to see can I get some hits on what people are talking about. Before I do that, I'm gonna play a little bit of PVD and respond to a little bit of this. And I think I might play well, we'll play a few videos. I know how this goes. I start playing videos and 2 hours go by. But it is what it is. So let's start here. All right, that looks good there. Hey, that's right. That's right. I voted for 47. Sick of wokeism, wars, and illegal immigration. Yeah. Let's see.
I do one with what Sonny is saying. And this is very weird to the point that, one of the co-hosts had to interrupt. If you want to press play, go ahead. It's kind of weird what to say.
Into the demographics, because Black women tried to save this country again last night. 92% of Black women voted for the vice president.
All dressed as a funeral.
You have Latinas in the 70 percentile voting for the vice president. What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding.
Wow.
You have Latino men actually voting more for him. And you have, and Black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms? And why do you think Latino men voted in favor of someone that's going to deport, says he's going to deport the majority of his community?
White women like being called uneducated white women. I think the economy matters, national security matters. But when you put people in these boxes, I think that's a takeaway from this race.
We have to look at the demographics of it.
By the way,
so that you can blame, so you can play identity.
And by the way, play now the morning Joe, because it's like the complete opposite, but it's not the opposite. He's going after, watch this one. This is just as frustrating. Go ahead.
Say really quickly too, Democrats need to be mature and they need to be honest, and they need to say, yes, there's misogyny, but it's not just misogyny from white men. It's misogyny from Hispanic men.
Right.
It's misogyny from Black men, things we've all been talking about, who do not want a woman leading them. Might be race issues with Hispanics. They don't want a Black woman as president of the United States. The Democratic Party, I've always found when you're sitting around talking, they love to just sort of balkanize everybody into these separate groups and say, oh, white people don't like women and Black people. No, it is time for the Democrats to say, okay, and you and I have talked about this before, a lot of Hispanic voters have problems with Black candidates.
Right.
A lot
and
of
with other Hispanics, you got some that don't like each other. And some of the most misogynist things I've heard going on this Get Out the Vote tour came from black men. I mean, misogynist things. So you're absolutely right. It's not simplistic. And we've got to have real honest conversations about it.
Real honest conversations.
How do you react to that?
This is why they lost. This kind of crap is why they lost. Nobody wants this. This is ridiculous. You know what? You know why people...
Man, it don't get no better than this, man. It don't get no better. I think, is there anything else on here? Let me see what else did they say. Let's see what else is on this video. I don't want to do too much. I don't get hopefully they don't flag me. Is there anything what else they saying? Let me skip through some of it. Let me go to Saul's North.
Maybe she's a really bad candidate and people are using common sense and they're like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
On Kamala.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Or maybe it was the economy, stupid.
All of it.
Maybe
and it's not so much a woman thing.
Be respectful to her.
Thank you, Tom.
I don't think it has anything to do with her being a woman.
It has nothing to do with her being a woman. It has everything to do with her being this particular woman. Because we were talking about Hillary earlier. She has a lot of negatives. One thing you can't say about Hillary is that she isn't smart, qualified.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing. Forget about how you feel. If you just look at resumes, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, come on, guys. It's not even fair. She had no chance.
Well, I want to ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
Laura, ask you, and you guys can jump in. Do you think if post-debate Trump destroys Biden, they don't do the switcheroo and all that stuff?
92% of people experiencing tingling or numbness in their hands or feet may not realize these could be early.
Let's go to the next video.
I want to go to
There's
you
so
on
many
this because, of
videos.
course, he is making the speech at the White House against this backdrop of a lot of finger pointing right now in the Democratic Party. Some who are saying, look, had President Biden not announced, to try to get reelected, and we all know how that transpired later on, perhaps this wouldn't be the situation. And we'll never be able to know, right? What do you say to that?
I'm going to speak some hard truths to my friends in the Democratic Party. This is not Joe Biden's fault. It's not Kamala Harris's fault. It's not Barack Obama's fault. It is the fault of the Democratic Party in not knowing how to communicate effectively to voters. We are not the party of common sense, which is what the message that voters sent to us. For a number of reasons. We don't know how to speak to voters. When we address Latino, and language has meaning. When we address Latino voters as Latinx, for instance, because that's the politically correct thing to do. It makes them think that we don't even live on the same planet as they do. When we are too afraid to say that, hey, college kids, if you're trashing a campus at Columbia University because you're unhappy about some sort of policy and you're taking over a university and you're trashing it and preventing other students from learning, that is unacceptable. But we're so worried about alienating one or another cohort in our coalition that we don't know what to say when normal people look at that and say, wait a second, I send my kids to college so they can learn, not so that they can burn buildings and trash lawns, right? And so on and so forth. When we put pronouns after names and say she, her, as opposed to saying, you know what, if I call you by the wrong pronoun, call me out, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. But stop with the virtue signaling and just speak to people like they're normal. There's nothing I'm going to say to Sir Michael that I'm not going to say to you, that I'm not going to say to somebody else. I speak the same language to everybody. But that's not what Democrats do. We constantly try to parse out different ways of speaking to different cohorts because our focus groups or our polling shows that so-and-so appeals to such and such. That's not how normal people think. It's not common sense. And we need to start being the party of common sense again. Joe Biden is not responsible for that. Neither is Kamala Harris. It is a problem that Democrats have had for years. I've been banging the drum on this for, I don't know how, probably 10 years, if not longer on this. We need to get back to being the party of common sense, that people look at us and say, we understand you. We appreciate what you say because you speak our language. And until we do that, we should stop blaming other people for our own mistakes.
Just to follow up with you, and Sir Michael, I'm going to get to you. What would you say to those who would argue, well, Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris, they were the messengers. They were the top of the ticket. They were responsible for trying to get to those voters and get through to them with the messaging you're talking about.
Listen, and again, I have a lot of friends who I'm going to criticize here, and I know them personally, so I apologize from a personal level. But when you're spending your time at the White House trying to have viral moments with Steve Doocy of Fox News, which nobody in the real world in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, or in Saginaw County, Michigan, knows or cares about, when you're trying to go viral on TikTok because you're somehow taking on and trying to humiliate an anchor at a cable news station, as opposed to looking into the camera and saying, this is what we have accomplished for you today in plain terms, right? You could look into the camera and say, thanks to our infrastructure bill, Route 212 in Bucks County, Pennsylvania will finally have that pothole filled in Regalsville that you've been complaining about. But that's not what they did. They try to have these weird viral moments constantly where they're trying to take on Ducey at Fox, and they think it's hilarious. Nobody knows or cares who Ducey is, and the people who do know him are not voting for us anyway. So the point is, there's a way to talk to people on their own terms about things that they can.
Couple of must-read opinion pages in the New York Times. Columnist Nick Kristof writes about his manifesto for despairing Democrats, offering a blueprint for, quote, how ordinary Americans of my ilk can respond. And he writes, I accept Donald Trump's victory. I will be a watchdog, not a lapdog. I will try to understand why so many Americans disagree with me. I will keep my cool. I will care for my mental health. I will push for blue places to govern themselves better. I will temper my strong views with humility. I will share Thanksgiving with relatives, even if I think they're nuts. And instead of despairing, I will find purpose. Also in the New York Times, Maureen Dowd has a piece entitled All the Demons Are Here, in which she writes, Trump has exploited the widespread disillusionment that has curdled into cynicism about a ruling class rife with hypocrisy, self-aggrandizement, and bad judgment. Americans have felt let down again and again since the 60s, with wars we shouldn't have been in, occupations we shouldn't have had, the bank scandals that were allowed to happen, trade agreements that hollowed out manufacturing hubs. Then there was the devouring pandemic. Many Americans felt left behind, fooled by Republicans and disdained by Democrats. All the dislocation was exacerbated by social media algorithms, igniting anger, outrage, resentment, conspiracies, and fake stories. Donald Trump is a human algorithm, always ratcheting up antagonism. He's a personification and exploiter of all things creating anxiety in people's lives.
From Maureen Dowd. Meanwhile, the stock market continues to see record highs since the election of Donald Trump. All three major indexes up yesterday. Dow Jones climbing more than 1,500 points. Futures continue to rise this morning. Let's bring in the co-anchor of CNBC Squawk Box and the New York Times columnist Andrew Ross Sorkin. So, Andrew, it looks like the markets continue to like the election of Donald Trump.
Yes, but, and I think there's an important but here. So I think that if you are on Wall Street, you think you like this to some degree. I think if you're a CEO of a corporation today, you are both trying to be optimistic, but also a little bit anxious. But here's the thing to watch, the bond market. We mentioned it yesterday, and I said there was an opportunity potentially that the bond market is the governor on whatever happens in politics, especially if you think there really is a red wave and the House goes red. And I want to read you, this is Barron's yesterday, but I think it's important. The bond market is sending a warning in the wake of Donald Trump's election victory on Tuesday. Investors may have been looking ahead to lower interest rates now that the Federal Reserve has started cutting. No more. The new message yields are sending. We're heading back for a higher for longer world of interest rates. The question is just how high. And you've already started to see what's called the 10-year note move higher. That is the benchmark for which we're going to have our mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are higher. We talked about the prospect of higher interest rates in this country and higher inflation. Effectively, that's what this is really about, higher inflation. And this is a major component part of that. And so I think while we can look at the stock market, and that is a signal of optimism, I don't want to discount that at all. There's this other side of the market that's saying, watch out. This may become a little more complicated.
For the layman, Andrew, the bond market is important. Why?
The bond market is important because these are the folks who effectively are lending the U.S., all of us, money, right? And we are saying, those folks are saying, we're going to lend you money at X rate because we think you can pay it back. The day we think that you can't pay it back, we'll continue to lend you money, but we're going to charge you more for that, which means you're going to get less on the other end. And those rates set our mortgage rates, they set our credit card rates and the like. So if we think that there's going to be inflation, that is a problem. And we've talked about the potential of the tariffs and everything else, and whether the other side of the deregulatory efforts that President-elect Trump says he's going to put in place, will that offset inflation? Maybe, maybe not. I think the bond market is saying maybe not.
So the Fed's going to cut rates today. So that's coming.
That is coming. A quarter point likely today, 2 p.m.
But you're suggesting here is that going forward, that's less of a sure thing because of the unknown implications of what Trump's going to bring. Because as we've all learned from you over the years, the one thing the markets don't like is uncertainty. He's bringing uncertainty.
He's bringing uncertainty, but I think even more than that, there's just the question of, look, if you have lower taxes for longer, he wants to put that tax package from 17 and make that permanent. That may have an inflationary effect. He also will be adding some other giveaways on the tax program. That could also have an inflationary effect. The tariffs could have, all of those things make it more complicated. So it's so interesting that you have this dynamic where the stock market is moving higher and the bond market is saying, I'm a little anxious.
So as predicted, CEOs falling over themselves to congratulate publicly Donald Trump on his election. But some of them actually may be going on to work in the administration. Do we have a sense for who among those are close enough to Donald Trump that they may actually
there's a
How does it feel to be a Kennedy helping Donald Trump return to the White House? And have you talked to any of your family?
Well, I had a lot of family here. So there was a lot of family that worked on the campaign, and they were here. So we had about 18 people here at the Mar-a-Lago dinner last night, and they're very happy. I'm sure there are members of my family that aren't that happy, but I've received a lot of congratulations from them. So.
From some of the supporters of Vice President Harris,
Yeah.
you've received messages from.
Yeah.
For you, what have your conversations been like with Donald Trump? Donald Trump has said that he would put you in charge of the public health agencies. What exactly does that look like?
Well, he's been very specific in what he said. He wants me to do 3 things. 1, clean up the corruption of the agencies, particularly the conflicts of interest that have turned those agencies into captive agencies for the pharmaceutical industry and the food industry, the other industries that they're supposed to be regulating. Number 2, to return those agencies to the gold standard science, the empirically based, evidence-based medicine that they were famous for when I was a kid. And number 3, to make America healthy again, to end the chronic disease epidemic. And President Trump has told me that he wants to see measurable, concrete results within 2 years in terms of a measurable diminishment in chronic disease among America's kids.
So is that specific role to be the Secretary of Health?
I don't know. We have not decided yet what my official role is going to be.
What did you tell him you would like that role to be?
That's why I didn't tell him. I've told him that I want to think about it.
So in that capacity, though, you feel confident that you have been given the assurance that you would be able to have an actual role in the administration that would allow you to make those sorts of decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. He's asked me to do that. President Trump is very committed to this issue. And he was committed to it before I came on board. In fact, he called me in 2016 when he won, and he wanted to do something like this back then. And for a variety of reasons, we ended up not doing it. As far back as June of this year, he was doing tweets that looked like I had written them, talking about chronic disease and the necessity, how debilitating it is for our country. When my uncle was president, 6% of our kids had chronic disease. Today, it's 60%. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, it's about 70% obese or overweight. In other countries that don't have all these poisons food, like Japan, it's still 3%. And when my uncle was president, I was a 10-year-old boy. We spend 0 on chronic disease in this country. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion. So it's 5 times our military budget. It's existential for our country. 77% of American kids cannot qualify for military service because of chronic disease diagnosis. We have to put an end to this.
Would you like to be nominated to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services?
Let me just say this. Now, I'm a fan of Bobby, and he's a little quirky at times, and whatever. Everybody got their thing. But what's so funny is that the left hates him so much right now that this idiot that's talking to him, and just like on the previous video, let me address it real quick. You notice how watching MSNBC, how it appeared to be positive, but it was actually negative. The markets are responding, and yes, the Fed is going to think about things and whatever, right? They're just writing stuff though. The Fed didn't say that. But like they're trying to almost manipulate you and make you think how bad it is, even though it kind of comes off like it's cool. They're so manipulative, man. You can't even keep up. You really can't even keep up. And this doofus here is going to start trying to attack. He literally just said, when my father was president, or uncle was president, right? His uncle was president. Obesity was 6%. Now it's 70%, trillions of dollars a year for healthcare because of chronic diseases that are much of it's preventable. And what else did he say? He's been saying this forever though, but kids can't qualify for the military, just a whole host of things. And that's all. Everything he's saying is all fact check. That's all facts. It's like you have this person who is trying to help people in the Trump administration, and you're making him your enemy. It just says a lot about how they're more concerned about power than anything. They're ruthless, man, on the left. They're ruthless. But let's just watch and play this out. Let's see.
Like I said, I don't know if that's the post that I want. I may be more effective in the White House as a health czar or something like that, but we don't know. We haven't decided. We're meeting today on these issues.
Would that be ideally looking over the 13 health agencies that fall under HHS?
Well, that would be one way to do it. There's other ways to do it.
You said you're meeting with now President-elect Donald Trump here this afternoon.
I'm meeting with his team, with his senior team today.
What is your plan these next 3 months?
I plan to spend a lot of time in Palm Beach over the next 3 months meeting with the team, putting together. We have a 30-day plan. We have a 60-day plan. We have a 100 and a 90-day plan. There are things that we want to get done very quickly.
Have you been given assurance that you would have a staff even?
Yeah, I will. And I don't want to talk about specifics about what the administration.
Well, then what is your plan come day one? What is at the top of your list that you want to make sure you, with the power, you've watched a lot of administrations over the course of the last.
Let me say this though. We know Trump is very finicky. I'm looking at RFK like, don't say nothing stupid because you're gonna get fired. So you got to relax. We're trying to deal with some obesity and health issues and stuff, bro. So don't mess this up.
Several decades. What do you want come January 2025?
I'm going to do things that clean up the corruption in the agency. That's the really, we have 1,000 ingredients in our food that are illegal in Europe, that are illegal in other countries, and they're making our kids sick.
So does that mean taking like lawsuits?
They're there because of corruption in our agencies.
Does that mean using the agencies to ban those products in?
There's a lot of different ways to do it. And I've talked very extensively about that on podcasts, et cetera.
So you would potentially seek to.
What my job is not to do as little top-down control as possible and just get good information to the American people. So we don't have good science because the agencies deliberately don't do that science because they don't want people to know what they're eating. And what I'm going to do is make sure that Americans have good information, the best gold standard science about their food and medicines, and then leave the choice to them.
You have been a crusader on questioning vaccines. Are there specific vaccines that you would seek to take off the market?
No, I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine.
You will not take any vaccine that is currently on the market.
I'm not. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information. So I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them.
Would that include COVID vaccines that are currently on the market?
I want the best science for every vaccine.
It is part of that. During the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, you were questioning the FDA and calling them out for approving the emergency authorization of the COVID vaccines. If you had been in charge of the FDA at that time, would you have blocked the authorization of the COVID vaccines?
What I was saying at that time is the vaccines are not going to prevent transmission, which they were telling the public that they would. They were saying, you need to take this vaccine in order to protect grandma. I knew in May of 2020 that the vaccines were not going to protect against transmission because I was actually reading the monkey studies.
But you would not have told the FDA. You would not have told the FDA to block the authorization.
I would have been honest with the American people.
And so you wouldn't have blocked it.
I would have been honest with the American people now.
So you wouldn't have blocked it.
I wouldn't have directly blocked it. I would have made sure that we had.
Just pay attention to this dummy. Now everyone know what happened during COVID. People know that people like Rachel Maddow, what's the dude named Fauci? They all came out and said, if you get this vaccine, and I know it's Trump's vaccine, if you get this vaccine, you will not transmit the virus. It was the exact opposite.
Best science, and there was no effort to do that at that time.
And if there was another pandemic that were to strike, why should the American public have confidence that you would allow a vaccine to be made available through the market, even it's?
Well, let me point this out: that they should not have confidence.
And we're not going to do any more whataboutism, so I'm going to jump off of this dummy. Let's go have some fun. Let's see.
Discover Peak Nutrition.
Let's go over to the 5 and see what they're talking about.
Waters, along with Judge Jeanine Pirro, Harold Ford Jr., Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is the 5. Looking at myself. The big guy's breaking his silence. Joe Biden emerging from his timeout after Kamala yanked him off the campaign trail for calling Trump supporters trash. The president had a big goofy grin on his face, looking vindicated and liberated after Nancy Pelosi's mutiny cratered harder than one of the stocks she just dumped. Biden reacting to his Veep's crushing defeat to Donald Trump.
The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. And we're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, something I hope we can do no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is...
How do you swear? We respect the election process. Is the message to people who are fearful based on what
the messaging was about the state.
Well, now you're just twisting everything around, and that's really unfair. I do not appreciate having my words twisted. That is, I have been very clear, very, very, very clear about what the president wants to do.
But Team Biden isn't going to let a bunch of dog-faced pony soldiers blame Joe for Kamala's embarrassing loss. No, no, no. They ran to the Atlantic to boast about how Joe would have won this thing. Quote, members of Biden's clan continue to stoke the delusion that its paterfamilias would have won the election. And some of his advisors feared that he might publicly voice that deeply misguided view. But it looks like the finger pointing is in every direction.
He promised to be a transitional president. When he decides to stay, the Democrats were in a quandary because they were expecting him to leave.
Can you imagine blaming Joe Biden for her loss? She lost, he didn't lose.
It was basically, if anyone has seen Game of Thrones, it was a red wedding. It was a bloodbath. So everyone is in a state of shock.
You did say in an interview last night that you thought that Tim Walz was part of the problem.
I do. Well, I'm biased. I'm from Pennsylvania.
All right, we do have a Democrat here at the table. We'd like you to begin finger pointing. Go ahead.
It's good to be with everybody. What a night. Congratulations again to President Trump. And congrats to those Senate Republicans and other House Republicans. We'll see what happens. Maybe they've run the gamut here. I've listened to some of the Democrats here, Jesse, over the last several days and listened to some Republicans. And here's my takeaway. Democrats need to listen, and I would argue some traditional Republicans need to listen. Everyone thought 2016 was an aberration, that Donald Trump couldn't have been elected because he basically betrayed a lot of the things the Republicans thought they needed to do in order to win. They thought they needed to have a different kind of immigration policy. They thought they needed to be a different kind of inclusive. Donald Trump was inclusive, but his inclusion dealt with economic issues. He wanted to deal with the economic anxieties and frustrations of Americans. So in many ways, this victory of his just 2 days ago, it seems like it was longer, was conventional in the sense that it's always about the economy. Democrats wanted to paint this race as being a referendum on democracy, and it was. Most Americans, however, describe democracy as having neighborhoods that were crime-free, having borders that were secure, having their little girls not be concerned if little boys are going to play in their sports, let alone come in their bathrooms. And Democrats tried to push on people, and particularly liberal Democrats, had this sense that endless whining and crying, endless condescension, endless...
I'm going to have to rewind that back. That right there is the election. What Harold just said, that's the election. That's it right there. I mean, you can't say it any better than that.
Again to President Trump. And congrats to those Senate Republicans and other House Republicans. We'll see what happens. Maybe they've run the gamut here. I've listened to some of the Democrats here, Jesse, over the last several days and listened to some Republicans. And here's my takeaway. Democrats need to listen, and I would argue some traditional Republicans need to listen. Everyone thought 2016 was an aberration, that Donald Trump couldn't have been elected because he basically betrayed a lot of the things the Republicans thought they needed to do in order to win. They thought they needed to have a different kind of immigration policy. They thought they needed to be a different kind of inclusive. Donald Trump was inclusive, but his inclusion dealt with economic issues. He wanted to deal with the economic anxieties and frustrations of Americans. So in many ways, this victory of his just 2 days ago, seems like it was longer, was conventional in the sense that it's always about the economy. Democrats wanted to paint this race as being a referendum on democracy, and it was. Most Americans, however, describe democracy as having neighborhoods that were crime-free, having borders that were secure, having their little girls not be concerned if little boys are going to play in their sports, let alone come in their bathrooms. And Democrats tried to push on people, and particularly liberal Democrats, had this sense that endless whining and crying, endless condescension, endless judging of people somehow or another would make people come to their side. As a party, we have to understand that doesn't work. And people are entitled to their own versions of freedom. Now, Republicans and Americans who supported Donald Trump, they aren't Hitler-like or fascist. There's nothing wrong with them for making the calculation that Donald Trump could do a better job for me than Kamala Harris. I think as Kamala Harris looks back at this race, she'll have some regrets about, should I have done more interviews? Should I have explained better my position on issues? Should I have talked about my differences with Joe Biden earlier? I think the recriminations about whether Biden should have stepped down earlier is probably an argument can be had there. But at the end of the day, when you're the nominee, you've got to be the nominee. And those in our party who are way to the left, who are described as progressives and liberals, I think there's a wake-up call for them because they are a part of our party. But their voices cannot be the dominant ones any longer, if indeed.
I would just say this. The Democratic Party is not going to change. I don't believe it. And those people still believe what they believe. They're not changing over just one election. It's not happening. Or two elections. It doesn't matter. They're going to keep pushing that agenda. That's just how it is. I mean, I don't even know what Harold is talking about at this point. The advice is that part of the advice just means nothing, honestly. And you're going to see that. We're going to keep doing shows. Hopefully everything we keep rolling. And you're going to see that the moment the left gets their chance, they're going to bring it all back. I do not believe it at all.
did we want to win? What happened on Tuesday was historic. A guy who many in my party believe is Hitler was elected for the second time with as broad a coalition as I've seen in Republican, racially, religious, ethnic diversity. It was a meaningful and measurable victory by him. And for Democrats to try to chalk this up as you people don't understand what you've done, America's going. I believe in America as much today as I did on Monday. And I believe my party has to change to ensure that our values and our priorities are aligned with the majority of Americans, because clearly, as we sit here today, they're not.
Well said. You know who seemed changed, Judge Janine? Joe Biden seemed like he had a little pep in his step today. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's funny. That's really surprising. Look, Joe Biden knows that he outperformed Kamala when he ran in 2020 and in virtually every state and with every group. So he can leave office saying, I did the right thing for the party and you suckers, I could have won this. But you know what? Shame on the Democrat Party. I mean, how blind are they? They are the ones who claim that they were saving democracy. And the truth is they destroyed democracy by not even allowing a primary in their own party, by saying we're going to allow this woman who never got one vote to be a vice presidential candidate when she ran for president in 2019. She didn't get one vote to run for president in the 2024 race. And they talk about democracy. They just moved her up. She just kept getting moved up. And how non-introspective can they be to not realize the woman didn't answer any questions? It was as though here she is, this understudy in the White House for 4 years who can't even articulate how she's changed, what she believes, how she's going to help America. They just weren't credible. And you know who knew it? The Raging Cajun. He knew it. He said, you know what? You people are speaking nonsense to the American people, which is why Donald Trump, and he's not Hitler and he's not a fascist, which is why he won, because they don't believe the Democrat Party and they better change their approach or they're not going to win again for a long time. And finally, Nancy Pelosi, I mean, she gets up and says Joe Biden belongs on Mount Rushmore, but she arranges the coup. I mean, they're not believable.
You know what the Democrats aren't pointing fingers at? The border, the spending, all the stuff that got us into this mess.
There's plenty of blame to go around. This is a phrase I just coined in the commercial break earlier before. There's also this. She raised over $1 billion in that 4 months, 107 days. On October 16th, she had $118 million in the bank. And they ended the campaign $20 million in debt. Like, are these the kind of people you want? Yeah. First of all, in charge of the your tax dollars, but also they asked their supporters for so much money. And they sold them a bill of goods on they still are, yeah. And they sold it. And that morning they told everyone that they could win all 7 states. Right. So I think that the blame is not just at the candidates and the message and the policies, but also at their consultants who fleece them and their supporters for not only their money, but their time. I also think that there might be something happening. Seth Moulton is a congressman, Democrat, who is an independent thinker, or a war veteran. But he said something today that I think is interesting. If I could read from my phone, sorry, I didn't print it out. He said, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenge many Americans face. I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. So a lot of the blame also needs to go to the people who are on the extremes, who run a lot.
LinkedIn is the place to be to be.
Producers who are basically making common sense the enemy of the Democratic Party.
You're hearing that a lot, that Kamala was afraid to offend people. That's why she ran such a lame campaign.
Well, I mean, there is a counterintuitive truth here. Like, it's good to be risk averse, but when action is necessary, it's the worst. She was the most risk averse person we've ever seen. It paralyzed her when she spoke. She was afraid to say something wrong. She didn't do anything out of fear. And then she's put up against Trump, who has lived an entire life of calculating and taking risks. He understands that actions are temporary. You can see what do you say? Let's see what happens. He would see what happens. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Democrats created this fallacy that if you did something, it was permanent. You know, it was like, oh, if you reduce immigration, we have no more immigrants. No, we're just actually reducing it. It's like it's like a temperature. You can raise it, you can lower it. Anyway, another story. I'm still trying to figure, what does paterfamilias mean?
I don't know.
All right. So I don't know what I read. I was shocked by a number of things that Biden said. We're going to be okay. He said that, which is really weird when your country's run by Hitler. You know, maybe he didn't mean that. Maybe none of them meant it. They had the audacity, to come out and tell people to turn down the temperature. He said, we're going to turn down the temperature. Joe Biden is like the political version of gain of function. He's trying to cure the disease that he himself created. Nice. You know what I mean? Thank you very much. He did look happy. He looked relieved, but you would too if you got bumped from a flight that just went down in flames. No one can say he lost to Donald Trump. They could say he's president barely. In a weird way, he's like Harrison Ford in Air Force One, a fictional president who spent the entire time hiding and trying to save his family. If you remember that movie. But when you make a deal with the devil ultimately collects. And that's what happened on Tuesday. They chose Joe and masqueraded him as a cogent, moderate leader. He was neither. They tried to bamboozle an electorate in order to beat Orange Hitler. The bill came due November 5th. If they hadn't have done that, do you know what? Trump might be leaving in 2 months instead of coming in at 2 months.
That's true.
So all they did was they put off the inevitable.
What was the movie with Nicolas Cage? Con Air.
I love that movie. So while I was talking, Harold, you were thinking about that. Like I'm sitting here, I was talking, and you were going like, "Who was that? What was that movie?"
I kind of zoned out when you said Air Force One. That's
like the last minute of your comments on Monday.
Oh, Harold. Coming up, it isn't just Joe Biden getting the blame. Democrats are at war over wokeness after Trump's election annihilation of Kamala.
Kamala Harris's bruising loss has got some Democrats wondering if it's time to give up on wokeness. New York Democrat Richie Torres is telling his party, quote, Donald Trump has no greater friend than the far left, which has managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party with absurdities like defund the police or from the river to the sea or Latinx. And he elaborated more on CNN.
I have a concern that the far left is pressuring the party to take policy positions that are deeply unpopular among most Americans. One example is defund the police. If you're speaking to working class people of color, then you would realize that there was never a mass constituency for a movement like defund the police. And so we should be taking positions that are in line with the majority of Americans.
Even the folks over at Morning Joe may think it's time for Democrats to break up with the far left.
Seeing ad after ad after ad in NFL football games saying that taxpayers were going to be funding transgender surgeries for inmates, it's not something that's going to play well in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, among men. They were afraid to respond to it because it might offend some small subset of their base.
You know who's been missing from all this conversation, Harold? Where's Ron Klain, the former chief of staff to Joe Biden? Because he was one of the people who really catered to the far left early on Green New Deal stuff, on all of these things, because he wanted their votes for some of the legislation. And now he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, I listened to my friend Joe Scarborough. I think he's right on that. I think that Bernie Sanders said some things early that I don't necessarily agree with. Senator Sanders said that Democrats should not be surprised that working class people have abandoned him, and he went down a list and enumerated some of the things that he believes in, and he's entitled to those beliefs. But I have a counter argument. I think working class people are capitalist. Working class people don't want to be overtaxed. Working class people don't want to be lorded over and dictated to by rich people, big corporations, or politicians who are sanctimonious. And if we're going to find our way back to that group, I was in Virginia this morning near Hot Springs, Virginia, coming back to the airport in Charlottesville and was driving. The number of Trump van signs I saw in these neighborhoods that 25, 30 years ago would have had Democratic yard signs. It just reminded me of the real answer over the last several years to this political education that Democrats and even Republicans whose party has been changed and transformed over the last several years, the political education's name is Donald Trump. And I'm not a supporter of Donald Trump, but I'm just trying to understand politics here. And I would caution my party, stop telling Democrats in the country that democracy is dead. Mm-hmm. Stop telling people that he's Hitler and that we somehow or another going to find our way off a deep, deep cliff. We are the United States of America. And as a political party, if we want back in, we can't get ourselves back in by trying to ice ourselves and shut ourselves out. Working class Americans found a voice this election. It's not indefinite or infinite that this voice of Donald Trump's will be there, for that matter, what he's espousing. But right now it is. And for us to learn from it, we have to learn from it and not get so constipated in the head and diarrhea with the mouth about how bad he is and how bad this moment is. Let's do a little introspection here and figure out what we can do to help working class capitalists capitalize on being Americans again.
And take your probiotics too. All right. Hey, Judge, one of the things that they did is they were just so hyper-focused on wealthier liberal issues like student loan debt forgiveness that really made this working class mad.
And it made you mad too.
Oh, yeah.
It's all of us. Let's make the working man who made a decision not to go to college or is still paying for his F-150, let's make him pay for the loans of people who are lawyers and doctors. Yeah. Look, the Democrats did this to themselves. And, Richie Torres is so right in taking them down. Bernie Sanders is right. they did abandon the working class, because what they told the working class was, and this is why the blue cities went right with Donald Trump. They said, we're going to defund the police. The police are Hitler too. And then all of a sudden, the blue cities are inundated with crime. Nobody has the ability to protect the minority community. And it was the left that said, hey, let's open the borders. And then the people living in the inner cities were suffering. Their kids were taken out of school so that the immigrants could be in the schools or be in the playgrounds. It was the Democrats who said to young girls in America, forget your dreams. We're going to put men in women's sports. And you know what I asked my producer and I, Roman, we were sitting there trying to figure out, why would the Democrat Party do this to young girls? And it was like 1.1% of the population is transgender. And of that number, less than 100 are in the NCAA. And yet what they wanted to do was destroy every young girl's dreams, because we got to champion the transgenders. Let them have their own game in their own lane. So when you take the side of people who need the government, and my final example, kids who went to college, the youth vote was with Donald Trump. You know why? Because their parents work hard to put them in school, and they believe in America, and they didn't want to hear that they were oppressors or, white supremacists, or that they were colonizers. They wanted to raise the American flag. The Democrat Party created it, and they deserve it.
And they put so much more effort into talking about the electric vehicle tax credit than like the child tax credit. And now you see them basically having to scramble in California to try to deal with an energy crisis.
Yeah, well, Janine's right. I think they panicked after Floyd. And when Democrats get nervous, they just start appeasing. They just start giving people things. They're like, okay, you guys are upset. Here's billions of dollars to BLM. What else you want? DEI jobs. Here's some jobs. Oh, you guys hate police? Yeah, we hate police too. And they started kneeling. They literally submitted to the far left. And then it bubbled up to corporate America, bubbled up to sports, and it took over the country. And Asians were like, wait a second, we kind of like merit. And the Hispanics were like, what's Latinx? And all the working class white guys were like, we just want to wear a sombrero on Halloween. Can you guys leave us alone with the pronouns? And then Biden, he should have been the one, because he's the old white guy, to shut it down, but he didn't know what he was doing. Remember, they were just passing him things to sign about equity. He proclaimed Transgender Day on Easter Sunday. Fool. Yeah. So Kamala, California girl, doesn't know how to handle any of this stuff. She was like, that's how she got ahead in life. And then Bernie made a point, and I would disagree a little bit about that. What's your name again, Harold?
My name's Harold Ford Jr.
Bernie's like, can we talk about... It's in your face, Harold. Thanks, Fudge, Janine. Bernie's like, can we talk about wages or healthcare or education? You know, the stuff that we always beat Republicans on year after year. That's all. And so they got hijacked by extremists.
Yeah. In that regard, you're right. I agree with you there.
Greg, the Democrats used to want to talk about inequality, but they dropped class inequality in favor of only talking about gender and racial inequality. And then that now the working class is not even broken down into...
We warn
blacks,
them.
Yeah, Hispanics. And
we warn them. F Joe Scarborough. Seriously, all these Dems now saying that the party spent too much time indulging a small, irrational, and borderline mentally ill group of people at the expense of regular, decent, working Americans. You could have listened to us. We were talking about this. I was talking about the trans issue for the last, I don't know how many years, 5 years. I was called transphobic. I was called bigoted. But every day I talked about it because I felt it was the most, and I'll tell you why it was the most important issue in a minute. But Scarborough only talked about it as a political issue. He was mad that they were doing it because it didn't play well in politics. He didn't talk about the parents or the families destroyed or the doctors who should be executed for butchering children in order to make a buck. We talked about on this show and my other show, trans impact on sports, in classrooms, and on kids. And the defense that I always got from the left was, it's just a tiny sliver of society. Why do you care? It's only, it's less than 1%. It's probably less than that, and they exaggerate it. And then they would say, why are you so focused on it? Why are you so obsessed? Are you transphobic? No, it doesn't matter the size of it. If you don't like torture, your excuse is, we only torture a few people. This is the biggest moral story probably since abortion, because it shows you how a toxic ideology can grow exponentially if it's left unchallenged. Suddenly, we were voluntarily butchering children. Again, a crime that would end in the death of a doctor. Now we were talking about it was a choice among children who cannot even make these decisions. Think about Elon Musk. He has an estranged transgendered child. He knows what wokeism has done. It took one of his kids from him, and that radicalized Musk. So he knew the truth, that there are sexual predators and delusional men who are gaming the system and violating women's rights. He saw how potentially devastating this phenomenon was to society, and it radicalized them. And by the way, we have to keep on this. We have to eradicate this from society.
I think the buttons on your shirt are absolutely lovely.
Oh, why, thank you.
Look, are those pearls?
They might be.
Are you wearing pearls?
No.
Late night lunatics are hitting pause on the punchlines just to sob over Trump's win.
It was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great.
And you take out your foreign passport.
I think all Americans can agree it's going to be a rough Thanksgiving.
Dana, I'll start with you. It was a terrible night for women. Trump won more women. He won the popular vote. What are these people moaning about?
I don't know. I mean, today Brian Stelter tweeted that there was a talent agent.
True Earth is making laundry easier. You heard that right.
Who told him that a lot of members of the media are questioning whether they have it in them to cover another Trump cycle. And then they wonder why the working class is like, guys, you are so out of touch with what real work is. And also, they didn't really cover the Biden administration. They didn't cover the border. They didn't cover inflation. Covering inflation was like this for them. They're like, oh, wow, people say they're upset about inflation, but we looked on page 32 of the Fed report from St. Louis, and actually it says that the economy is great. So everyone, it was bizarre. But I think on the late night thing, it was worse than usual. That was worse than I thought it would be. Like, you could at least kind of make fun of yourselves, but I guess they've lost the ability to do that.
Yeah, Greg, you have to be self-deprecating as a humorist, don't you?
No.
All right.
We're acting like this is any different. They haven't been funny for years.
Yeah.
Trump slayed their funny bone. Kimmel actually said in that thing that, the people who voted for Trump, they just don't know what they've done. They don't realize how badly they've hurt themselves. And so it's not a concern for others that you're seeing with this. It's an expression of ego, that they are smarter than all of these people. And as always, when you're a slave to your ego, it's always somebody else's fault, and therefore they cannot see their own errors, their own mistakes. If you are open up to being wrong, you're more than likely going to end up right once in a while. But these guys have been wrong for 8 years. They've been wrong for 8 years because they can't let go of their egos. It's true in the media. It's actually, it's true among the never Trumper Republicans. If you look at the sourpusses, it's an internal emotional feeling that why him, Trump, and not me. Whether it's like, I don't know, Bill Kristol or Jonah Goldberg. It's like, these are guys that were generally normal. And then their egos just kind of like, they just took it hard. And you got to let go, guys.
Jesse, AOC was talking about the working class. She says after the election, our main project is to unite the working class against this upcoming fascist agenda. We've had an enormous setback. Does she not remember that when the fascist was president is when she got elected, and that she moved Amazon out of her own district for the working class?
Yeah, she used to be working class. She was a bartender, and she forgot where she came from. And now she thinks Trump's going to put her in prison, like she has some sort of persecution fantasy, because in the left, if you're a victim, that gives you status. So everyone's now jockeying to see who could be like the number one dissident in Trump's America. Greg talks about this all the time, about how people need to get a life, and they think Trump is the sun. Mm-hmm. And then everything revolves around Trump. So they frame everything about how they relate to Trump. And all that really does is make Trump look stronger. Now, the late night hosts, I should probably be the last one to tell them this, but it would behoove them to show a little humility and maybe make fun of their own side, because you're talking about people who ran on putting tampons in men's rooms. They ran on giving breast implants to people in prison. The guys were spiking volleyballs into girls' faces, and they were like, nice shot. Let's hit the showers together.
And Rachel Maddow, Harold, was saying, let's try the strongman thing. Let's let democracy go. Let's get rid of the powerful guy. Well, democracy worked, but they don't like it.
Right. Democrats, we tried to make the argument that democracy was under threat because of what happened on January 6th. President Trump, what his behavior was like after the November 2020 election, and the legal challenges he had. The problem is the country didn't accept that. That narrative is a narrative that it's okay to advance, but at the end of an election, the voters made a calculation. They believed that the other guy, Donald Trump, could help best their economic frustrations, anxiety.
Yeah, they're going to pull my channel down watching this thing this long. But it's so good, though. It's so good, man. I could not have said it better myself. And I don't agree with a lot of Fox News. But when you're right, you're right. So I'm going to go on Twitter and look at a few videos, and I'm going to probably shut this thing down. I don't think DC is going to jump on real quick for a few minutes. I don't think so. Share. I'm going to watch a little bit. I'm going to look at a little bit of this stuff and see what comes up. See what they're talking about.
Racism doesn't have any power. Chuck, I don't agree with that. People were outwardly racist while Trump was in office. He gave them white people. Like who? He made it comfortable for people to be outwardly racist about how they feel. Chuck,
No, he didn't.
the climate was a lot different.
Studies came out about the racial divide trending in the wrong direction in 2013 when Barack Obama was entering his second term, when the Black Lives Matter movement jumped off. Let's not make it seem like Donald Trump led to this big increase in the racial schism in this country. That happened under Barack Obama. Since we want to go there,
but did it happen?
Since we want to go, it happened. Yes, it did happen. We talk about one-way aggression. You allowed to be openly racist towards one particular group of people, and it's white people. Let's call a spade a spade.
White dudes are pussies.
White men are the issue. White men are the biggest threat to America. They are.
You got analysts on MSNBC, CNN openly referring to Donald Trump and his voters as Nazis. Nowhere in popular media do you see white people saying the kinds of things that you see people saying about white people on national television, from Joy Reid, Trevor Noah, Don Lemon, over and over again.
But Chuck,
you don't see that anywhere else.
Because you can't get on mainstream media and make light of other races doesn't mean that the racial climate is still not what it is.
The reason why the racial climate is what it is because that's what critical race theory seeks to do. It seeks to polarize for the purpose of finding people who are sympathetic to your cause. And you keep on dividing one group onto itself until you create a group of disenchanted, angry, dysfunctional people that you can then use for the purpose of your liberation. That's not my words. Those are the words of Herbert Marcuse himself. Anybody talking about race in this country or talking about critical race theory and have never heard the writings or the words of Herbert Marcuse, you cannot sit at this table and talk because you don't know the theory, you don't know the science.
But like somebody never heard of them, but in their own eyes, they look out into the world and think, yo, that shit is fishy to me.
I don't give a damn about what you go out in the world and see.
A racial slur was spray painted on the front gate.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is dealing with a racist
news found in the garage stall of Bubba Wallace.
See, this is all about narrative weaving and storytelling because they play upon people's emotions and how they feel. If I go to a doctor and tell a man, I feel like I'm having a heart attack, the doctor is going to run a specific set of tests to get to what is actually happening. He has to know the truth. He can't do medical procedures upon me based upon what I tell him I feel. He has to know for a fact. He has to know what he's talking about.
So he has to do a battery test.
He has to do a test because if he does the wrong treatment to me based upon what I feel, he could kill me.
What is the lesson that your party should have learned?
Well, the Democratic Party worked very hard. And they raised, substantial sum of money. We had great candidates. And so Trump had a following, basically generally led by whites. White males voted in big numbers. He had a few from the other race groups that joined in, like the Latinos at 45%, and black men at about the same rate that they did when they voted for him before at about 20%. That combination won. And so it is not that Democrats did not work hard, did not do a great job. We had an unusual situation where we had a black woman, which this country has never seen before. A combination of all of those things led to his win.
I will not push back on the idea that race and sex matter in American politics. I think they do. I don't know that it was the controlling variable, and you don't suggest otherwise. To me, it seemed to be that the Democrats thought Trump stinks is enough. And Senator Bernie Sanders said something that reminded me of you, which is why I wanted you on the show tonight, Maxine, which is Democratic Party used to be, we are all about doing for working people. That's what we do. That's what Mario Cuomo's party, that's what Maxine Waters' party was. You are now seen as not that, even by Bernie Sanders.
Democrat Congresswoman Maxine Waters, a member of the House of Representatives for more than 30 years. Good evening. It is looking like America has gone for Trump. What's gone wrong?
Well, based on the information that we have now, it certainly does look that way. I don't know if it should be described as something gone wrong. Evidently, the majority of basically whites in this country willing to accept a dishonorable human being, someone who has been convicted of 34 felonies, someone who has been openly and brazenly racist, someone who has, talked about his love for Putin and Kim Jong-un and made some statements favorable to Hitler. It doesn't matter.
This is all why you don't like him, but why has America voted for him?
Racism is the basic point. Now, I know that there will be some support from some minorities, but basically we're outnumbered. We're outnumbered. And it's not about whether or not, people.
Talking about the fact that the biggest threat to domestic security today is white nationalists. That's fear mongering.
Who works with stop? I'm sorry. I cannot. Who works with white Who works with white nationalists? Who calls white no? Who worked with white nationalists?
Like, that's what I'm saying. Like
nationalists. No.
And who's emotional? Where's the emotion coming from?
Let them finish. Who worked with white nationalists? Joe Biden called die-hard segregationist Ku Klux Klan members. He didn't just call them his mentors. He called them his best friends. He worked with them to keep black kids out of better Sunday school. No. Now, we can all sit here and say that busing was not a good program, okay? But whether it was a good program or not, Joe Biden partnered with racists. One was right here from South Carolina, Strom Thurmond. I have family members who still remember Strom Thurmond. They still suffer.
Remember him.
They still suffer from some of the stuff Strom Thurmond did. And Joe Biden called Strom Thurmond his best friend. I'm not done yet.
I can say no.
Joe Biden, no.
Okay, we gotta bring you back in, brother.
It's getting good. Let's see what they're talking about.
And there is racial bias in this country. Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country. And anybody who thinks that that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong.
Can you imagine?
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely.
Let's see. Is there anything else that's interesting out here before I go? Let me see.
Let's need to be mature, and they need to be honest, and they need to.
I think we already seen that. What do they think we've seen that already?
As you call it. I think that there is even recriminations now among Democrats as to Biden and whether Biden should have dropped out earlier or Biden should have stayed. Would a white male have done better? Obviously, Trump has defeated 2 women and now a black woman. So there's all of these questions. But to my mind, it seems to me incredible that a guy who led a insurrection against the United States government is potentially now, like a phoenix going back into the Oval Office. It's unbelievable.
Well, you have to consider the fact, Juan, that a lot of people didn't think that was an insurrection. They thought it was a riot, but not an insurrection. And had they thought there was really an insurrection, I don't think he could have won.
Well, I don't know.
The exaggerations about that day.
Well, I'm not exaggerating.
About the alleged threat to democracy is a piece of what happened tonight is.
Well, I don't think so. I think, again, I'm giving you my perspective.
And I'm giving you mine.
Right. So I listened to you as my friend. But I'm going to tell you what I saw was not only a right in terms of the violence, but a direct action intended to stop certification of a presidential election.
Understood. And we've talked a lot about it.
That's why I said that.
And we've talked a lot about it. And the campaign,
very clearly. I'm not trying to hype anything.
The campaign ran a lot of ads about it, talked a lot about it, and more, half the country now, Juan is going to say, that is not what I care about. I care about my economy. I care about immigration.
No, see, that's where we differ. I'm not sold on this idea that, it was the cost of eggs. I worry that it was, I'm not voting for this woman, or I'm not voting for this black woman.
No, that's not what we see in our data.
Well, here's the thing. Where do you see that? Because a moment ago, Darren was out here and he said, in fact, not only did the bro strategy work, and the bro strategy largely worked along the lines of white men, but that the bro strategy also had some impact in terms of Latino and black men who came along and gave higher percentages.
All right, Carl, weigh in.
I just want to make one more point with one. I spoke to Jack Brewer this week, and here's what he said: if Trump wins, he said he won because black men felt that Democrats and elites put immigrants before us. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts on that?
I just think that that's possible. I don't know that for a fact. I think there are tensions between racial groups, and people might feel that. Obviously, they're going to. You can exploit those tensions, and you can exacerbate them to the point where you can politically benefit from it. Do I think that's the reason he won? No. I think the reason he won is you look at that bro strategy and the white male turnout and white grievance politics that he has used to great success in this country.
Carl, I think he's trailing his prior 2020 numbers with whites.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? I think that the
increased Hispanics and black males.
Yeah. It's not sufficient to make up. It's not sufficient to have this kind of night.
Look, I just think it is extremely odd to suggest that black men are somehow prejudiced because they vote for a white candidate who says, I want to make certain that everybody has an opportunity to succeed in our great economy. I want you to be more prosperous, and I will do things that will make it possible for you to make a better life. Mm. That is an appeal to their best instincts. He did not go out and say, vote for me because I'm not a woman. Don't go vote for me because I'm a white man. That would not have attracted those votes. They got attracted to him because they thought he was a strong, effective leader, and they thought he would do something about the issues they cared the most about, which is an economy in which they think they get the short stick, inflation, which has decimated their purchasing power, and illegal immigration, which has affected their communities deeply. And to suggest that somehow black men are racist because they supported a white man is just too far, Juan.
You're distorting my comments. But let me just say to you, I followed your comment. Carl, hang on. Carl, hold on. We're not saying most black men did not vote for Donald Trump. So I never said anything like that. That's just not true.
Oh, you suggested it's only
I'm saying to you, no, I'm saying to you that in terms of this bro strategy for white males, the whole notion of I'm bad, I talk about women in the most disparaging way. There's some men who just said, you know what, I want to be in on that. I want to be a badass guy. Yeah. And I think they like Trump's image and the caricature.
I think they supported him in spite of that, not because.
I think I might end it on that. That was a pretty good pretty good interview right there. I wasn't watching their debate. They was having a good conversation at Fox on during the election. Let's see, what does it say? Either Donald Trump show this is we're fired and blame him on his manifestation of ugliness. Yeah, I can't do it, bro. I can't do it. I don't want to hear from you. You know what? I'm gonna stop it right there. Shit, I think I'm done. I think that last conversation was where we need to end this. It was pretty good. But I will say that there is so many videos out there to play. I might go live tomorrow and try to find some more videos, because the machine, I think, has already started to attack Trump, his campaign, and the Republican Party. I think they're already gearing up, and it's slowly starting to bleed out to where they're going to get off the whole, woe is me, and switch over to attack mode and just pour it on and pour it on as much as they can against Trump. And that's really just to hold on to their audience and to hold on to people who vote for them. Ultimately, that's the whole point, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm going to let it go there. We're going to shut this down. I thought DC might pop on for a hot second, but I guess he's doing what he's doing. So I appreciate everybody coming out to the program. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see y'all on the next run. Have a good one. This is Paradox. This is celebratory time these next few days now. Then I ease up off a little bit. But anyway, this is Paradox. This is the Code Breakers. Until next time. Peace.